Listeners, you may not know this, but there are over 40 active WestWorld podcasts out there. And if Unspoiled alone is failing to scratch your itch, you should check out Day 11 Podcast, which is a podcast about WestWorld podcasts. Day 11 talks about all of the different shows out there and the way that they approach covering WestWorld. And while WestWorld is off the air, they are also discussing Better Call Saul, which has recently returned. Please check out Day 11 Podcast at day11podcast.com or search Day 11 Podcast on your favorite podcatcher. And now, on with the show. This is an Unspoiled Network podcast. This is Unspoiled, covering WestWorld, Season 2, Episode 1, Journey into Night. In this episode, Bernard's having some of the same problems Dolores was having, and I'm very excited that we get to see the aftermath of everything, because it's fucked up but also hilarious. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
And yeah, this episode...
Hilarious is not a word I expected to hear.
Hilarious
but I'll allow it.
It's an exaggeration, but I will say the moment where the camera, for example, swings outside the barn Bernard's hiding in, and we see one of the women attending the thing with a glass on her head while people shoot at her. Right. I definitely was like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing. Like,
there's some just desserts being served.
You know. So hilarious isn't a fair. It's more, oh, what delicious irony. But I don't like to.
Delicious is also not a word I expected to hear.
Did we introduce ourselves?
Yes.
All right, good. See? I'm so on top of things. So yeah, this episode. Wow.
This episode. We are meeting all our old friends again, seeing what they've been up to. And what they've been up to is ain't shit.
Yeah.
They've been up to ain't shit.
I would like to register my satisfaction / smugness that Stubbs is still alive. However, we still don't know about Elsie.
That's true.
I assume that she's also still alive, and I don't understand how Stubbs is still alive and doesn't know more about what's going on.
I was just going to ask because we lost track of Stubbs towards the end of season 1. I forget if it wasn't the finale, but it was either 8 or 9 is the last time we see him when he got gripped up. And then here he is, ungripped.
Yup. Yeah, I really... So, I watched this twice in a row. And the first time that I watched it, there's, the moment where the black woman in the goggles is has her gun on Bernard and is like, put your hands where I can see him. And Stubbs is like, what are you going to shoot the boss? And leads him away.
Isn't that great?
Yes. And I definitely thought when she looks at the different cards in her hands that she was looking at images of hosts that were still missing, because I didn't even see anybody else that when she was leafing through it. So I thought it was everybody knew now that he was a host. And when I rewatched, it was towards the end of the first watch that I was like, I think I misunderstood that. And then on the rewatch, I realized, he's staff and he has a high security clearance. And also, I had expected, because I thought that it was known what he was, that Stubbs was like leading him away to like fill him in on something. It's just the way that scene goes where Stubbs is leading him away from the woman, but then they all wind up in the same vehicle together anyway. It was just sort of strange to me. So I thought that he like gave him a little inside info about something.
Yeah.
And
it does seem like he pulled him away from her before anything else could happen. Even though we're not really sure what would have happened next, you know. Did you remember that line?
Which line?
The when are you going to shoot the boss?
No. Did somebody say that in the first season?
So remember in the first season, towards the beginning, they get an alert. There's like an unaccompanied or unregistered host or something in the basement. And Bernard and Stubbs and some other guys go down to the basement. And they find Ford playing with Old Bill.
Oh, right.
And Bernard says to Stubbs, when he pulls his gun, he's like, what are you going to do, shoot the boss?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had forgotten about that.
So I did not recognize this woman's face the first time I watched this episode, and it drove me crazy. And I couldn't place her. And then I don't think I realized it. I think I read it somewhere. The woman who pulls the gun on Bernard, that's the no from Get Out.
No, is it?
Yeah, what's her name? Is it
I have
Georgina?
Oh, Georgina in the movie. Yeah, I thought you were going to ask me the actress's name. I was like, I have no idea.
Yeah, I can't remember her name either. I should have looked it up. But yeah, that's her, right? Isn't that crazy? She looks, she looks the same,
totally different to me.
Totally different.
Yeah, like she looks like 10 years younger than that woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay. That is such a fucked up scene. Oh, just you saying no, like that is such a fucked up scene. So I kind of skipped over like the intro.
Yeah, we should start at the beginning because it's, everything is important.
So there's a conversation between Bernard and Dolores here, and I get the impression that this is before everything went down because of some of the like tells of how Bernard is dressed, but there's a feel to it like it's after everything went down. Good God in heaven.
You've got to be fucking kidding me.
That it sounds like somebody just started up a
bullet
blender right next to the mic.
Or a bullet blender.
Does it blend? But yeah, they're like the way that he's talking to her and he's, coming out of this reverie and says, I'm sorry, I don't know what we were talking about.
I see what you did there.
And she's like, we were just talking. And I'm like, were you? Or are you just telling him that because now you're the one in charge and you're treating him like the host? And he's here thinking that he's in charge, questioning you about stuff. And it's totally the opposite that's happening. But like I said, I think from the way he's dressed that it's the first one. But I don't know. You know what? It's hard to tell. Because you told me that there was like a way to tell between old Bernard and new Bernard. Human Bernard and host Bernard.
There had been.
Really? Really? You're just going to... Is that what we're doing? You're just going to leave it there?
I'm just going to leave it there.
I tried to get you to tell me at the end of last season when there was no reason for you to keep a secret anymore. And you couldn't even remember. So I demand this information now because it's retroactively you've remembered.
I share with you some small minor wardrobe-y things.
I don't remember that. What did you say?
Yeah, there was the way that in the first season that Bernard and Arnold were dressed slightly, some small things, like there was a thing with the glasses, which was one of the things that I first noticed.
Different pairs of glasses?
Yeah. And like in the first season, we would see the Arnold character, he always had on like this, kind of like how he's dressed here, with this like weird black kind of overcoat. almost like a doctor's coat, but not.
Yeah, it's like weirdly high necked and everything.
And then the black glasses, and then our Bernard had blue glasses, and was always dressed in like a blazer and a tie and a vest that were always like different kind of blues,
Okay, noted.
So those were like the things that I had noticed in the first season. So while he's having this conversation with Dolores, they're talking about a dream he had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's talking about how he was with the hosts and there was water and that they were like across the way and left him behind, and the water continued to rise all around him. And the dream, like, he doesn't say it ends there. He just like stops talking, and she takes it as, oh, I guess that's the end of the dream, and I suspect it's not. But she asks what it means, and he tries to be like, dreams don't mean anything, and I'm like,
right,
buddy.
And she says the same thing.
Yeah, basically. And when she asks what's real, he says that which is irreplaceable. To which she's like, yeah, that sounds nice. That's bullshit, though. How about we get real? And he tells her that she frightens him sometimes. And I'm like, not often enough. But because of this dream, I do want to jump forward to the last scene. Can we just talk about it? Because I have theories.
Okay, Gus, let's get right into it.
I have a theory, and it changed from the first viewing to the second viewing. Because the first time, I had forgotten about this dream. So the first time, and you know, I'm thinking about it, and that might not actually even matter. But my theory is that it was understood once everything started to go down that for the vast majority of the hosts, being out of the way was going to be like the best for everybody. And so they were programmed to go down to this secret location and either drown themselves or just like go offline and be on hold. Like, we don't see bullet holes or anything, right?
Right. Oh, you mean like in the host while they're all in the water and stuff? No, there's no obvious injury to any of them. Like, there's not like blood or whatever you would think it's inside them.
Yeah.
They're just kind of.
So unless like they all got in and somebody just dropped a giant hairdryer, I don't really see how they're all dead. Like,
right.
Making yourself drown is a really hard thing to do.
It is.
And they're not tied. There's nothing to indicate a struggle. They're all, you know. So programming feels like the most likely thing. And I'm thinking that this is a, like, some sort of subliminal programming in place. Now, I had been gonna say that Ford put the programming there. Then I remembered Bernard's dream, and I'm like, well, this is human Bernard, I think, saying this. So, you know, the programming, if this is human Bernard, it doesn't make sense for him to be having a weird programmed dream, like of, you know, vague things that, so, or maybe Bernard programmed with this, or maybe he came up with the idea and Ford poo-pooed it and then decided to do it after all, since he like turned his way around on, you know what I mean?
Right. Okay.
But yeah, I think that there's that moment where he says like, I killed them all. And I'm like, did you? Because they don't have to be dead.
Okay.
And even if they are, we know, like he says, what's real is that which is irreplaceable, but they're all replaceable. Like, you can just fix them. So I don't know. It was an odd moment, to be honest, at the end of this. Like, this supposedly really emotional, like, oh my God, all of these. But we know they can just all come back.
Right. So it doesn't feel like it has the... it doesn't seem on its face that it has the weight that a scene like that should have. Mm-hmm. Because we as the viewer know that they're all hosts. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you could just fucking take them down to that lab and patch them right up. And
to get back to the beginning, where he, you know, is washed up, his glasses are washed away, which gave me stress to watch happen, to be honest.
Same. There's like a moment where he has to like feel around for them. And you're just like, oh, thank God they made it.
But, you know, you have no idea exactly how much time has passed since everything went to hell. And I think that
he tells us.
Stubbs says it's been 2 weeks that we've been offline or something, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So initially you're just like, wait, what? I thought it was like the next day. And when he says 2 weeks, I'm like, oh my God, what? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they like bring him in and they pass by a bunch of hosts being shot. Mm-hmm. To which again, why? Isn't that a weird way to deal with this?
Well, the character that we meet there, Strand, is you know, the guy that's from operations and who's, you know, welcoming Bernard and hoping to get information from him. And all that's happening in the background, and he says something like, basically, you know, I'm going to shoot him because I don't have time and don't want to give him a chance to fuck up shit anymore than they already have.
Yeah, I guess, like, because I was going to say you can just take them offline, but the ones woke up that were in cold storage, but then you can just take the things out of their heads and, like, reformat them or whatever.
Right.
But I guess it doesn't seem like it's that hard to build one from scratch. Like, it takes a long time, but they're obviously going to have to do a serious recovery period with this whole location if they ever decide to use it again.
Right.
So maybe time doesn't really matter.
Yeah. And then we learn a couple of things later in this episode about exactly how much and what is valuable about this whole project.
Right.
You know? And I think there's a moment later in the episode when Bernard and Hale are having a conversation. He's like, they would let us all die, you know, and just be done with it.
Yep.
They don't get what they want. And she's like, yeah.
In summary, correct.
The background when everyone is getting shot, did you see our old friend?
Yes.
His name, you were just talking about the guy who shoots the woman with the, you know.
Yes. So I was a little bit bummed by that, to be honest. And he says something like, shoot a woman over my dead body. And I'm like,
right?
Interesting.
Like, did you think that was weird?
Yes.
Because, like, sir, we just saw you, though.
I guess she didn't count. A human woman did not count. And yeah, we meet, what's his name? Flynn? What's the Flynn? Dude who's director of operations? Floki.
I just said his name like 2 seconds ago. Strand.
Where'd I get Flynn?
Yeah, and that's the one you said was you texted me.
Yeah,
like that's
he's Floki from Vikings.
Right. The other Skarsgård.
Yep. Yeah, he's one of the and I should have known when I was watching Vikings and realized he was like a foot taller than everybody on that show that he was a fucking Skarsgård, because they always are. But yeah, Floki is a character on Vikings that I like love and hate at the same time. Not like he's like an evil guy or anything. He's just frustrating and very memorable, and like just one of those that his face stays with you. So when he showed up here, I was like, wait, is that? And he still got the beard and everything. So it wasn't that, like, if he had been clean shaven, I'm not sure I would have put it together. But he's got that weird patchy beard that he has.
Right.
And yeah, he is not here to play.
I do want to mention one thing before we talk about Strand too much more. There's a series of clips between the moment that We see Bernard
Oh,
talking to
yeah.
Dolores about his dream and when he wakes up on the beach.
Right. Yeah. I'm going back now to exactly that point so that we can see that. All right, so we see Dolores shooting the back of the head, and then we see her in like a turtlenecked evening dress, and she says, "It's been some time, Bernard." And she looks great, and he's smiling at her. And then you don't know who you are, do you? And he's shaking. And then we see, what's his face? Her dad?
The Abernathy.
Abernathy.
Peter Abernathy, yeah.
And he's like in a polo shirt and clearly like spazzing out a little bit. I'm sorry, I should not use that because I've heard that that's like...
It is.
Yeah. He is... It looks like having some kind of glitch. And then a brief moment of her like talking to Bernard again, and then him with a machine gun going ape on somebody. And then what looks like the control room and a huge fight, and him like cowering in the middle of it, it seems like. So yeah, he has somehow like lost all memory of what happened in those 2 weeks, but apparently he was into some of the shit in a very real way. So
he was into some of the shit. Well, there you go. That's the whole episode, basically.
Yeah, I feel like that's it, right? All right, so yeah, back to he's not here to play. Carl Strand. Stubbs kind of tries to be like, well, you weren't there, you don't know. And I use that dumb voice, even though I'm really on his side, I promise.
Right.
But I'm imitating him as far as what I think he sounds like to.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, and he just says, oh, yeah, you know what? You were head of security, and there was a massacre of hundreds and hundreds of people, so shut the fuck up right now.
Maybe you don't get to talk.
Yeah, it's a real moment of just, I want to defend Stubbs, but also you're not wrong. You're super not wrong. And they go back to the site where everything kind of popped off, which I'm expecting, of course, for there to be like a little town still. They took all that down. I don't know why I thought that was all still going to be there, but it's just like a random spot of beach that's kind of cleared out. And he decides that they're going to take some camera footage out of one of the host's brains and take a look at it to get an idea of what happened. And this is super gross.
He tells us it's going to be gross, though.
He does.
So this is going to be gross.
I have to say, though, I was really gratified that we got to see this finally, because it's been a real question for me how they can have, apparently, so many of the same organs and flowing blood and muscle and everything as a real human being, and yet they're so programmable. I couldn't understand it. So it turns out that it seems like the brain tissue, I think it's still like functioning in some capacity, but the main like programmable brain function and recording and all of that is located in this like kind of cortex thing.
Right.
And I really enjoy that they just have a fucking tablet that you can plug.
You just pop that shit right in.
Like
an external drive.
That is a mess. Oh my God. It's so gross. Can you imagine, like, if you worked in IT for this company, forget just, like, turn it off and on again. Like, you'd have to start with cleaning blood off of a lot of the equipment before you could even do anything. Jesus. So, and they find under the scalp, too, another, like, maze thing.
Yep.
And they still, none of them know what this even means, which I don't know why I expected them to have figured more out at this point, but I did.
I mean, it's been like a year and a half, right?
You know, like,
for us.
I think it's just like, it's 2 weeks and there was a massacre, and I don't feel like this stuff, at least to me, the viewer, it doesn't seem like it's been so hidden. But I don't know what kind of like cleanup job Ford did to cover his tracks.
Right. I think it's important. It seems like in this stage where they're all on the beach and everything, like, it looks like they're just getting here.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I guess I thought that somebody, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think you're right. That's true. Because there's like a U-boat off of shore, and it's basically an army. Yeah,
it's some kind of like, there's that scene too with Strand, and he's arguing with the guy in Chinese about who has jurisdiction, basically.
Yeah.
And Strand is saying, I do, and now get the fuck off my island. Which was interesting because we talked about, we weren't really sure where this was happening.
Right.
Right, so I guess now we have an idea that it's just some kind of small island off of the coast of mainland China.
Which I should have known because that's what's his face loves to do, is have theme parks on islands. So I should have figured that shit out.
Who are we talking about?
The guy who wrote this in Jurassic Park and whatnot.
Oh, I can't think of his name.
Yeah, you know.
But yeah, I guess you're right because that's. Yeah, and that's the same thing with Jurassic Park, too. It's like a little island off the side of... Is it China?
No, it's Costa Rica.
Oh, okay. But it's like a little island that some company manages to have complete control over.
Yeah, you can buy islands. So, yeah.
Yes, you can.
And Costa Rica's really big on preservation, so he, like, frames it as if it's some sort of animal preserve when he buys it, at least in the book. He's real shady. Like in the movie, he's this sort of jovial, like, oh, I just want to do something cool for kids. And in the book, he is like a cynical shitbag who fucks over the Costa Rican government, and they are real mad when everything starts to go, like, there's repercussions from that. Yeah. But they do try to look into expanding and buying an island in Asia somewhere in order to, kind of corner the market there.
That's funny.
So, yeah, I should have known.
I guess he's got a thing.
He do.
So they get this thing out and they pop it into their little iPad or whatever they've got going on here and get to see the last moments of this host who they have taken this thing out of.
Yep.
And it is our friend, Dolores.
I love that, like, she is just super dramatic, even though this is another host. That she, like, not all of us deserve to make it to the valley beyond. Like, what a thing to say.
Right.
And I don't know if she's aware that they're checking this stuff, because it might be for their benefit. It might not even be the host's,
Oh, that's an interesting idea. Like sending a message.
Yeah. But obviously, like, she's going around killing everybody, because we see later her chasing down other people who are in the party. But, like, this is another... So why? And there's obviously some sort of determination that she's making on whether they are
who
allowed
gets to go,
die.
who deserves and who doesn't. Yeah.
So I'm just really curious about that, because if I had been going to guess, I would think that the mark under his scalp would have been an indicator that he deserved to make it. And instead, it's nothing. Or so it seems. So, yeah.
Right. And the way she says it, too, she says, I've told you. Which, suggests that there's a conversation that has happened that we haven't seen.
Yeah.
Yet. So, very early in the episode, the show, it seems like they are being a little bit more obvious, or transparent, rather, about time.
Yes.
More than they were in that first season, right?
Yeah, I think they realize that you can't try and pull that trick again. Like, that's, your whole audience is totally tuned now. So either you do something completely different, or you do it, but you let them know and then have another surprise in some other way. Right.
So we got that it's been 2 weeks since the party. And when he pulls the video, it's dated like 11 days ago.
Yeah, right. So not quite 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's, he says, like, over here is where most of the board was when things started. But that was obviously at night. Mm-hmm. So that did kind of trip me up, too, when we started to watch the video and it's during the day. So this host, it's been a couple days by the time she gets here.
Yep.
As long as we're taking him at, like, literally when he says 2 weeks, that yes, 14 days.
Right. If we can count that, that's exactly 14 days. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just like, because this is what I wanted, I think, right? Did I not say this at the end of the last season, that I was like, I really hope that we get to see exactly how all of this happens.
Uh-huh.
Because it's it would be so easy to fly through what I think is the most interesting part of a takeover like this. And that's something that I've always had a problem with in terms of, like, zombie movies or TV shows, that I think that the most interesting parts are kind of shelved in favor of the, like, apocalyptic aftermath. Mm-hmm. And
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, anyone who listens, excuse me, anyone who listens knows you are a big fan of the logistics.
The logistics. Yeah, like, I like to see how we attempt to handle something and why it failed. Because it's really easy to be like, well, why didn't they just do this, this, and this? Like, and you can't tell me that people in that universe don't have the smarts that the audience does. Right. So it can be really frustrating, unless it's The Walking Dead.
Where they clearly don't have the smarts.
So it can be really frustrating to see stuff that you feel in your gut is like, that should have been preventable. Somebody should have known not to do this. And yet it's already happened. And you have no idea why. You just have to take it on faith that, well, you know, they did their best and it didn't work. So I find that really unsatisfying, which is part of why I really loved World War Z. If you guys haven't read World War Z, and I recommend it as an audiobook because it's a series of stories from different people's perspectives and you get different voice actors for it. It's like all logistics and it's compelling as fuck. It was the first episode of the book club I ever did, and it's 4 hours long.
Jesus Christ.
That was really not a good idea on my part.
Oh, I remember when that happened.
I had so much to talk about, though. Like, I got really carried away. I did not understand what my show was supposed to be yet. Because I'm used to doing things like chapter by chapter, so I had not learned to pare it down.
Oh, that's right.
So... yeah, so anyway, this, like, the fact that we're going to get to see how this worked and the difference between what happens to, you know, board members who are just investors who show up and don't really get it, and then somebody like Charlotte who knows
what the fuck's going on.
A lot more than even Bernard, who had high security clearance. And we get, you know, the point of view of different hosts, it seems like, because Teddy doesn't seem entirely on board with everything all the time. So I'm really here for it. Like, this is exactly what I wanted. So yay! Anyway, getting back to where we were, I'm sorry. So then this is when we have the flashback with Bernard looking at his hand shaking.
Right.
And this is interesting to me because, like, we credit the whole thing with his hand as being due to the loss of fluid, that white fluid that's in his head around
the cortical fluid. Yeah.
And as far as it seems, he doesn't actually start to lose that until he gets knocked down. So he must have started to lose it a little earlier, and it just got, like, worse. Or else there's something else going on.
What's causing his symptoms and all that stuff. When you say when he gets knocked down, you mean when he tries to jump into what? Like
When they go after the stable boy.
Okay. So when that scene opens, when we have Bernard on the beach, and he starts to, like, glitch or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, something is obviously wrong with him and his hand's trembling.
Mm-hmm.
And then it cuts to them in the barn. His hand is still shaking.
Right.
And he's got, like, the fluid coming from his ear. So I'm thinking that this is...
He had the fluid coming from his ear then, before the...
Yeah, like he taps his ear.
Oh,
while he's still leaned up against that thing with Charlotte.
I'm going back. Because, like, I was just looking at that, and I did not see him touch his ear like that, so hold on. All right, yeah, he's looking at his hand. It's shaking not quite as badly as it is in the flashback. When you go into the flashback, it's shaking a little bit more severely. Just a little. And he's looking at it, and he grabs his hand and, like, kind of tries to still it. And then we hear the woman outside and the gunshots. No, he doesn't touch his ear here.
He doesn't?
Mm-mm.
When he's...
Nope, not until he gets knocked down.
Oh, I thought he touched it before.
Yeah, no.
I think the thing is supposed to be that this is from what happened last season.
Oh, from getting shot. Okay,
right.
Gotcha.
And, he got put together kind of hastily by, what's his name? Felix.
Yeah.
So I think it's supposed to be from that and not necessarily from him getting hit. Mm-hmm. Though I guess getting hit didn't help.
Yeah, I would imagine that if you've done a rush job, getting knocked down is going to fuck that up. It's like having stitches and you just tear them open again, you know?
It's a good analogy, actually.
But yeah, I also like the idea, like, now that you've brought up maybe the damages from him having been shot, that there's a possibility that it's also a, like, vague PTSD, because he has been shot in the head, and he is not a host that was programmed to be in the field dealing with this stuff. Like, he was an office guy who had no idea. And now he's in the middle of a literal war zone after having just been shot, like, what, that day? The day before? Like, It was really recent. So I could see this just making him incredibly nervous and worried and just bringing up some shit, you know? But again, I don't really know how his programming works in that way.
Yeah, that's interesting though, because you're right. He's not in the field, as you put it, and hasn't, to our knowledge, been really repaired a bunch of times. And whatever is done to them, to the regular host, I mean, after they get injured and they get fixed,
right,
wasn't really done to him.
Yeah.
You know, because
I would imagine that, like, in addition to fixing their physical injury, that there's some reprogramming or erasing or something, and they did not have time to do that kind of shit. So whatever memory he has is probably pretty vivid and not, like, buried in the back of his mind the way it is for other hosts.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I think that's fair. A host with PTSD.
Yeah.
That seems unfair.
Listen, it's no more unfair than humans have. Like, it's not. Why are we allowed to have trauma and hold on to that? Like, animals in general, that just doesn't. I get it. It's supposed to be like, oh, and then you learn and you can protect your. No, you can't. Like, that's how trauma works, is that you couldn't protect yourself. Like, knowing doesn't make it better.
Why is the platypus?
What's that?
Why is the platypus? Platypus is always what I think of when I think of, like, ridiculous things that God has allowed. I'm pretty sure I got that from that old movie, God, with George Burns. And there's a joke in it about the platypus. Like, the guy asked him, you know, you're almighty and everything, why the platypus?
It makes me think if there was some comment I saw on something where somebody was like, God, just be out here making anybody. It's just, died when I read that. It was somebody who was very strange looking and also just, you know, hadn't made some good choices in terms of their appearance also, and it was really unfortunate. But yeah, just the platypus really feels like if you used a bunch of components to assemble different like animals in a video game, and then you had a bunch of leftover components that you hadn't used on anything, but there was just enough to make one more creature and you needed a sixth one, and you were like, I don't know, all right, fine, yeah, it's a mammoth, yeah, give it a beak, I don't care. Like,
I saw a cartoon the other day. It was on like Noah's Ark, and it was two beavers talking, and one of them says, I'm just saying, it's going to be here a long time. And then in the background, there's two ducks.
Wait, what?
Insinuating that at some point the beavers fuck the ducks, and that's how you get platypus.
Oh my God. Oh, that's the worst. Shut up. Get off of this show.
I can't remember who posted it. Okay, so the stable boy comes in, and he's very nice and sweet, and he offers them assistance.
Yeah.
They are not having it. He offers them help to get to the Valley Beyond, I think.
Mm-hmm. Which, guys, use your ears.
And then they just beat the shit out of him, and that's when Bernard gets conked in the head because he tries to save him.
Yep.
And Charlotte is like, sir, I need you to focus.
Right? Yeah, the way that this whole scene is done, because they're all looking at each other trying to figure out what they're going to do while this woman's getting used as target practice outside.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Also, fucking dude who's doing the shooting in the end is drinking milk still.
Yeah, right.
What a weird,
I don't
like,
know.
gimmick.
I don't know.
Oh, you know what? He's going to be the outlaw who loves milk. What?
I love, too, the other guys in the gang are, like, drinking from bottles of whiskey and shit.
Like, that's what I mean. Like, it works. Don't get me wrong. I'm not looking at this like, what idiot approved this? I'm more just like, who had the balls to approve this? Because you just, like, present that to me, and I'm going to laugh at you. It's not till I see it being done that I understand, which proves I have no vision. But yeah, this whole thing, and like the final shot that goes, and you just see a bit of blood come through the bullet hole in the barn door, and like her slump. Yeah. And that actress was really good too. She was only on camera for a second, but she has that like paralyzed, horrified fear in like a very open, vulnerable, raw way on her face that's like kind of hard to do. I feel like it doesn't get the credit it deserves when it's on screen. Yeah, so they decide that they're all going to take off, and like, you know, there are horses, so it feels like none of these assholes probably know. I don't know, rich people ride horses, I guess, because I would think that you would need help getting them set to go, you know? Right,
yeah, I mean, I don't know if people can just jump bareback, you know, and start riding. I feel like you'd need somebody to saddle it up, and you know, and if you've never really ridden one before, you might be better off on your feet. But it's as far
easier
as
to hide
getaways,
too. Like if you're worried about people picking you off one by one, I would go by foot.
It's funny you say that, because the very next scene are people running in the fields and being picked off one by Dolores on horseback.
That's fair. However, they're running in the field. They're doing the fucking Rick and Stark.
Oh my God! Like nobody can zigzag, right? Everybody's just running straight ahead.
Oh God! Or just double back. Do you know how hard it is to U-turn on a horse?
Do something. They're just running full steam ahead. I would have just like went down into the grass.
Yeah. That's my thing. When you're in an open area, but you've got 3-foot tall grass, you use the grass, you dummy. But anyway, in any situation, it's easy for me to be like, I would do that better.
Right. From the comfort and safety of my home.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, if somebody came up to my window and pointed a gun at me at this moment, I really don't have any idea what I'd do. I'd probably be like, this isn't happening, and not move at all. At all. And then they'd find my body and be like, why didn't she duck or something? And my ghost would be standing over them going, I thought it was a joke. Don't blame me. All right, so next scene is, as you said, Dolores fucking, like, the most badass. I need to figure out a way to get this still for the episode image, because her in her skirts, like, flying across this bit of prairie on her horseback with her gun up, and the reins like up over the barrel of the gun, and her teeth are bared, and she's like full on gallop with this horse. It is the most badass thing. And in that outfit, and she's picking off dudes in fucking tuxes, which is so surreal. It feels like they accidentally spliced together something from a spaghetti western and a James Bond movie.
Right. It's really effective.
It is.
And then it just does this thing where it cuts from that to a close-up to a guy, and then she kind of leans into the camera then cuts to a close-up of her face. And she asks him, like, do you know where you are? And you're just like, okay.
Yep.
It's funny because it's a callback to kind of like what you suggested with the scene with her and Bernard at the beginning, where she's the one asking the questions, you know? Like, she's sitting in front of him staring at him like we've seen people do to hosts, you know?
Yeah, and there's something about, and I said this, I live tweeted as I watched this episode on my dedicated Twitter feed for spoilers, because the regular Unspoiled Twitter, which is at Unspoiled Show, is, I don't want to like hit people with a bunch of spoilers if they haven't seen something. So I created one that you can like opt into that's called at Unspoiled Rotten. And I live tweeted some episodes of Legion on there, and I live tweeted as I watched this one the first time. And the fact that they are all in modern evening wear makes this all so much more grotesque. And the woman who's in those stilettos.
Right?
Like
I kept thinking, why didn't she kick those off miles ago? Like, she was running across the field in those? That makes no sense.
You know,
but
that's one of those things that I always think, but have you tried walking barefoot just down the sidewalk lately? Because our wimpy modern feet are like peeled chicken breast. Like, there's no protection. It's pathetic. I just tried to go get the mail in bare feet the other day. I couldn't handle it. I had to turn around. I couldn't do it. So I can imagine that, like, you take your shoes off and you go 3 steps and you're like, nope. And you put that shit
go
back
back
on
and
again.
get your shoes.
Yep. And you're like, you know, heels are completely impractical and horrible, but barefoot is worse. Forget it. I don't think that's what happened here, but nevertheless. And yeah, this poor woman is like trying so hard to keep her balance, and that's serious core strength and mad respect, because I'd be dead already. Like, there's no way I would have been keeping my balance on that. She has her hands tied in front of her. At least the other guy can hold on to the noose. The guy next to her, he's got his hands free for some reason. That seems really unfair to me. And he's got his hands around the noose, and he's just basically like, you know, doing, like, using the noose as the support. But they don't actually hang them.
No, they just kind of leave them there to whatever may happen. And she has this, Dolores has this great sort of speech she gives to the guy, when she tells him that they're in a dream. And then she has a really nice moment when she's talking to the woman, and she asks the woman what her core drive is, or her motivation. Yeah, it's a really nice switch up from what we got so much of last season.
Yeah.
And it really, I mean, the scene with Dolores on horseback picking them off is amazing. but there is something about the power she has here. It's not just because these people are tied up or whatever. It's just everything she's giving us right now is just that she is in control.
Can we talk about... I'm of several minds about it. Because I wanted to shake her a little bit for that one. But yeah, he asks, what are you going to do with us? And she plays both roles. The rancher's daughter looks to see the beauty in you, and she gets this really compassionate expression and runs her hand down his face, and her body language is like fully towards him. And then she closes her eyes and she gets in close, but it's different.
Right.
And says, but Wyatt, and I like that she says Wyatt, she sees, rather than, having Wyatt be of a different gender. Wyatt is the name, but it is still her.
Right. I love that.
And then she puts the pistol in his mouth and is like monologuing like Wyatt, and then she pulls the trigger and there's nothing there.
Listen.
Because she's so mean. She's a meanie. Who knew? Who knew the woman fucking tracking down people on horseback and gunning them down was a meanie?
She seems legit crazy when she has this Wyatt moment here.
Yep.
Like, her whole performance, like, her face changes in this really subtle way. And her eyes, like, they almost go dead a little bit when she's being Wyatt. I don't know. She's just doing some crazy stuff. She was amazing last season, so I shouldn't be surprised. But here I am.
I like, too, that, like, these people don't know what the fuck she's talking about.
Not a clue.
We, as the audience, know what Wyatt and Dolores are and who they were programmed, but these people don't fucking know. So she's describing these personalities, and it really does just seem like, oh no, I'm in the hands of a mad woman. Like,
right. Like, they really don't give a fuck about these fine distinctions that she's making between, who she was and who she used to be. And she has this moment where she talks about what she is now, that she's involved into her. And meanwhile, they're just apologizing, for being trash human people that, thought it was just a game. And they say that. We just thought it was a game.
Yep.
And then as she rides away, she says, doesn't look like anything to me.
Oh my God. Which I said on Twitter that's going to be my new response to, like, racists who get outed in videos on Twitter. Like, and then they try and apologize. Doesn't look like anything to me.
That's been my thing. I don't use it, obviously, where you can see it, but I use that GIF all the time.
Oh my God. And Teddy, like, there's a moment where he stops and looks at them, and there's some disgust and pity and whatnot on his face. Like, he's loyal to Dolores, and he's going to do what she wants to do, but this is obviously bothering him. This is just not sitting well, and he doesn't seem to know how to approach that with her, because clearly she turned a corner somewhere.
Yeah, he doesn't seem like he is 100% on the same page that she is. He still has, like, lingering doubt or confusion or something. He's just not where she is yet.
Yeah.
Whatever this is, and then we cut to our old friend, the Man in Black.
Yep. Yeah, alright, so tiny nitpick, not a huge deal, but he tosses two bodies off of him, and the body in front definitely breathes, like, heavily, a couple times.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, and it was distracting. Like, I just was like, come on, you couldn't have... Okay, because he's in the foreground, he's right up in the camera. But, yeah, and he struggles to his feet, and I definitely did a, like, yay!
Oh, did you?
Nice. I figured that he made it because I saw some promo thing and his image was in it, and I was like, all right.
Oh, boo.
But I had kind of forgotten about it by here. Once you're in it, you lose track of what you even thought was coming. And I love him, like, looking around at the total carnage, and there's a wolf standing there. Symbolism. just staring at him, and he stares back at it, and it finally just trots away. And he looks around and just really seems like, well, shit.
Mm-hmm.
And he makes his way over to his horse, because there looks like there's like a cabin that's just kept for him nearby.
Yeah,
because all his stuff is in there.
Yeah, it seems to have his own little special, like, you know, I don't know what you call it in video games or whatever, but his own little place where he can go to re-up.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So this is happening, I guess, where or when in your mind when you see this?
This has to be happening like next day.
Right.
Because it's all the bodies are still there. The tables are still set. Like nothing has been taken care of. There's barely any, like, you know, the animals that we see, when they turn over, what's his face? And he's got maggots in the hole in his face. Yeah.
You know, when they see Ford later.
The things have started to get along once they get there, but here it doesn't. Everybody's very fresh.
It's very fresh. So this is like the next morning, and he goes to his little cabin where all of his stuff lives, and his horse Ned. Mm-hmm. And some guy comes yelling at him.
I could tell by the way this was being filmed that this guy was going to get popped in the head, and I was just waiting for it. Let me tell you something. By the time the lawyers get... And he goes down hard, and William scrambles away, and he got clipped in the shoulder, and I don't think that happens here. I think it happened the night before. But these two dudes start to close in on him from either side, and he finally gets his first real fight, like, that we have gotten to see. I imagine hiding under dead bodies wasn't much of a fight. It was a strategy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not shading him for that, and he gets the one guy and like pulls him down and uses him as a human shield while he takes his gun and like shoots the other dude, and then grabs the guy's own knife out of his like thigh holster and cuts his throat. Mm-hmm. And it was just pretty great. Like,
it's gruesome. And you're right. He's already shot in the arm when all this is happening. Mm-hmm. But he feels alive for the first time.
Right? He goes inside and cleans himself up and puts his black hat on, and obviously is just like low-key delighted.
Yeah, he is.
And I kind of like, it's a real testament to his commitment, because he goes into this little cabin that he has set up for himself, which, you know, in the grand scheme of things is pretty luxurious in terms of what they would have had in the era. But I'm looking at it and just like, man, you just have a basin with a pitcher in it. You just have a friggin' bathtub in front of the fireplace. Like, you didn't get plumbing even in your little vacation house. Like, but I was
he's keeping it real.
Like, he's so committed to this. Like, it wouldn't be any fun if he cheated with things like that.
Right.
And
didn't we see him last season use like a cheat one time? Like a little special kit that he pulled out of the wall. He
used some explosive cigars, which I'm not sure if that was because they do have to like call in.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. He had to call in and get approval to use it.
Right. So I guess it's still period appropriate. It's just not what would be available to most people in terms of weaponry.
Okay.
But, because, it's just gunpowder, right? Something like that?
Yeah, I guess so.
So, he dresses his wound, and by dresses, I mean he pours booze on it and ties it in a filthy rag. Which, you know, all right, sure. It's a flesh wound. I'm sure it's fine. And he's still got so much blood on his face, and he just looks nuts. Like, the camera zooms in on him, and he looks scarier here than he has in the whole first season, frankly, because he's got that eye. All right, let's talk about Smallwood.
Smallwood? I had forgotten about that.
This idiot was still so distracted throughout this whole thing that, like, distracted by his desire to prove himself or whatever, that apparently he was closeted up with his distraction while everything went to hell.
Everything was going to shit, yeah.
So this guy turns and is a fucking cannibal maniac.
That he created
And gave his lines.
Terrible lines.
Oh, consume my victims moist. Can we talk about what a horrible...
No.
It used to be fresh. It was why I always consume my victims fresh. Ew. Moist is so much worse. And not just like the sound, because I know some people like that word is just... That's not the problem. It's poorly done. I really appreciate Maeve calling him out on that later, too. Like,
yeah.
Another line. But yeah, he's in the middle of like the final moments of his life with this guy's mouth over him when she interrupts in her sheath dress and stilettos and basically like futuristic Tommy gun. And he has to convince her that he's worth keeping because she's really gonna kill him. And really? She should. I don't blame her for keeping him around, but I'm not sure exactly what help he was either. So far, anyway. Right.
I mean, the big thing he promised turned out to be nothing.
Right.
And then she decides, in later in the episode, she says that having him would be helpful because he's going to know the characters best.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't have been sad if she had just left him down here.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering if it's like the one thing that he does is he goes and grabs supplies for them all. So I guess it's like his knowledge of like the whereabouts of things in this building. But they could have figured that out. Like she's got.
I mean, really, I wasn't impressed by that little task he did.
So he convinces her, and they wind up. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit here because, as you said, the map just winds up being nothing.
Well, yeah, when they get to the control room where he's taking her to see the map, it's a mess.
There's a bear.
Yeah.
There's a bear. There's a bear in the control room. Everyone. What? That's unexpected.
So, I mean, it's super early to be positing, too many what do you think happened here and all that kind of stuff. But what do you think happened here?
Like, it's so, the way that everybody is arranged, it looks like they all, like, they died where they fell. It was really quick and immediate. And it looks like somebody did it from above. Because it's just the way that they've all been shot. But I don't know.
Okay.
And, I am still wondering where the hell are Felix and Sylvester. I feel like we would have seen their body if they had died.
Right.
That would have been a specific thing. Mm-hmm. But I'm not saying Felix and Sylvester killed all these people because that's crazy. But I just was keeping an eye out for them as we went from room to room inside the facility and definitely noticed their absence. And yeah, there's a woman that's fallen from up top right into the middle of the map. So that it looks like she got thrown or dropped or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And even on their way to the map room, too, the hallways are just littered, with, I'm assuming hosts, but I guess it could be some techs in there, too. We just see a bunch of bodies on the floor. Yeah, so...
So he's like, all right, so the map's no good, but I can probably tell you where to go if you just... And she's got, the sector written on her paper. And he sees that it's 15, and he's like, oh, that's weird. That's not, a high-intensity area. It's family-friendly. It's, easy terrain. And I think that you had an old story there once where you were completely wasted, by the way.
This was
Right? Yeah, the whole, like, there's so much happening. But yeah, the way he describes it, like, you were completely wasted there, and by the time you got brought to me, you were really malfunctioning. Which might be the thing that I start to say about myself. Instead of, man, I am fucked up over this, I'll just be like, I am malfunctioning.
I thought you were going to say that's what you're going to say to other people, but I like your version better.
And he makes the mistake of trying to be like, you know that girl isn't real, right?
Why is he not reading the room better?
He says, because I can tell you're distressed and that you're awake. So I'm just trying. And I'm like, if you think she's awake, do you think she hasn't figured this out yet on her own?
Right.
Like, come on.
And still made this choice. So what are you...
He's mansplaining.
A little bit, right?
Yep.
Is it different if it's because he's talking to a host? Is that like human-splaining?
I mean, it's a wakened host that he just acknowledged is wakened.
But clearly doesn't think is...
really wakened.
Exactly. Because she's not smart enough to understand that the daughter isn't, air quotes, really her daughter.
Yeah. Yeah. So then she gets up in his face and tells him that she's going to splatter his oversized personality all over the wall. I love that phrase. It's a really good one.
And you know what? She has a moment, too, where she does a little bit like what we just saw Dolores do, where she taps into her Maeve, you know, with the Mariposa, you know, where she's kind of like moving her body towards him and she caresses his cheek a little bit, you know. Is this real? Is my body real? And so on. And then she fucking slams his shit up against that wall.
Yep. And she tells him that she doesn't want his fucking directions, that he's going to take her to her daughter. And I really hope her daughter's still alive by the time she gets there, since Dolores seems to be cleaning house.
Perish the thought.
That would be a really fun, like, then there's a war, host versus host, because you killed my daughter, you son of a bitch, but you could fix her, I guess. I don't know. So then we have our crew with Bernard walking through these idiots didn't take the horses, walking through the desert, and they fall for the most obvious trap in the entire world. There's, for some reason, a buggy with several people standing stock still around it. That looks safe. Come on.
That's not suspicious at all.
You idiot. And it's right out in this clearing, and it's got, like, fucking flashing neon lights pointing at it going, come here for help from Scary Robot. And yeah, like, none too quickly, even, like, I expected better of Bernard. I thought he'd figure it out sooner even, but he does figure it out, that it's a trap, and he holds back Charlotte, and sure enough, these dudes all get the drop on the crew of lame, I don't know what to call them, corporate puppets.
Yeah, that works. I was going to call them shills, but...
Shills works also, yeah. And there's a weird moment where there's this one dude who... She just, when the girl rolls up, what's her character's name?
Wait, I'm sorry.
With the wreath on her head, who had been the introductory host for William when he was first coming to the park.
Is that Angela?
Angela, is that it? I don't even know if we ever heard
Angela is the host that William met, that got his outfit and all that shit together.
Okay.
That's Angela. But before that happens, as they're walking to the trap, Bernard has a conversation with Charlotte. And she's talking about how she didn't think Ford would program the host to do this.
Right.
And to even kill him. And Bernard says, what if Dolores did it on her own free will?
Right.
But Charlotte is not here for that theory.
Yeah, Charlotte's just like, you know what? Not only am I not going to entertain that notion, but why would you say that to me right now? Please don't. Like, I feel like there's so many reasons to just keep
She's
your
like,
mouth shut.
that is not helpful, Bernard.
You know? So Angela comes up and tells the one dude that he can run.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sure why she lets him run, unless it's just to carry news of our deeds back to your comrades, but I don't think he has any other comrades, so I don't know. And the other woman is like, please let me go too, and they shoot her in the head.
They sure do.
Really?
Not even like a blink.
It's kind of weird. I don't know.
About letting him run, you mean?
Yeah, and letting him run, and the way that, like, they took out all of these other guys from far away, but she gets off her horse and walks up to this woman to shoot her in the head.
Yeah, that seems a little,
I don't know if it's just a drama.
almost personal.
You know? Yeah.
But you know
I
what?
I feel like there's something else going on there.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe it is kind of personal.
Yeah, true.
For some of them, you know. Because they probably got a lot of rage to work out.
Mm-hmm.
So, Bernard gets, like, really bummed out because he's like, there's not any other access points.
And she's like, Well, it's funny you should say that, because I know all sorts of shit you don't know, you plebe.
You thought your security clearance was high.
Yep. And we cut back to inside the facility here, to the girl that the two of them run across that's, like, dying, the host.
Mm-hmm.
But she still says, the sun is sure shining on you today. And Maeve has to put her into a deep and dreamless slumber. That's a really sad little moment.
Yeah, like an act of mercy.
Yeah. So they're in the middle of this tender moment when some guards get the drop on them. And she shoves her gun away to make it look like this is not... And thankfully for her, she's already changed into regular clothing. Mm-hmm. She could easily have been attending the ball, or whatever you want to call it, in this outfit. Right. And this little weasel...
he tries to be all slick.
Even if
Might some of them be dressed?
Human, like, and looks at her and I hate him so much. Like, there is absolutely no reason at this point to turn her in, except for, I guess, thinking that she's gonna completely annihilate everybody like she does in 5 seconds anyway. You know, like, just keep your fucking mouth shut, dude. You don't know how any of this is going to play out. And you clearly need her on your side. And you clearly don't know how to keep anybody on your side.
No, he's a mess.
He's really bad at having allies.
Which is probably why he was alone in his little lab when all this jumped off.
Do you remember in did we watch the Fistful of Paintballs episode of Community together?
Yes.
Do you remember how Chang keeps running from one clan to another? Like, that's how I picture him by the end of this. Is just like his hands tied behind his back and a blindfold on because he had been about to be executed by one side, and he goes sprinting over to the other side screaming about, I'm really loyal.
That seems like a fair and accurate characterization.
So... this other dude who is a sheriff, one of the sheriffs, I guess. There's some backup sheriffs. He comes in and shoots the other dudes and then stops, and she has to take a moment to let Smallwood know if she really wanted to, she could sick this guy on him right now. But I'm not going to do that. And even in that moment where she clearly knows and says, you were going to out me, he's like, no, I wasn't.
Oh my God.
You have been caught. Just fucking man up and admit it. Like, Jesus.
He is pretty terrible. He is just like that sort of simpering kind of, like you said, weaselly, just no spine having, just,
no
you know.
spine having. I think we call that spineless.
I stand by what I said. Yeah, it really, really drives home this, like, girl, what are you doing keeping him around? Why do you keep deciding to keep him?
Yeah, I don't know. I have, like, some feelings about this. I'm not sure. But yeah, they go out onto the landing and where the bar is. And that's a pretty surreal moment, too. Because, you know, I'm seeing all of this starts in the park. And seeing people dead there is just like, what happens there? But there is the element of them wearing modern, like, formal clothing. But still. And then we go inside the facility, and I'm like, oh, I forgot about the havoc wreaked here. But they're all in uniform or somebody who wear. And so I'm still kind of like, yeah, well, I guess this is what. But then you come out here, and this is just people at a bar trying to chill in the pool.
Right.
Like,
and we had seen this scene before, you know, and it was in the first season. This is where everybody goes to relax. You know, you get to go here when you're not working, and you would think that this would be way out of the line of fire, right? Like, this is just, how did whoever did all of this carnage, like, they went out of their way to go upstairs to find all this.
Yep.
But then, you know, we run into our friend Hector, who I had missed.
Lord.
I had really missed seeing him. And you got to figure, he's kind of responsible for most of this carnage that we're seeing.
Yep. Likely. And, like, they got him. He's riddled with bullet holes.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he is a specimen.
He's still fine and dandy.
He is.
Even all slumped over and, you know, I mean, you're like,
bloodshot eyes and blood holes.
Just bleeding everywhere. It's okay, though. And this reunion.
It's so good.
It's so good.
She's like, hey, you know, about leaving you to die. And he's like, oh, sweetie, that's what I love about you.
Basically. And then even after he's like, I understand you didn't come back just for me.
He knows.
It's okay.
Yes. Hey, gents out there, here's how to be a supportive dude.
Right.
Don't mind if she leaves you to die. And don't always think everything is all about you.
Basically.
It's
and
not
if she
that
happens
much.
to come back, you fucking be grateful for that shit. And she says, you know, I'm going to go after my daughter. And he's just like, you know, I'm ride or die.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a moment of like, well, what am I doing? Yeah, all right, I'll go. Like, you know. So.
Yeah, he had something like, where you go, I follow. And I'm like, doesn't everyone want to hear that, though?
Yes.
Yes, we do. Hint.
I think that's the last we see of them this episode. But I'm very interested to see how that pans out, because I don't feel like he's going to put up with Smallwood's bullshit for a second. So there's going to be some confrontations.
I feel like he's just not going to be in the mood for him and would want to shoot him the very first opportunity he gets.
Yeah, really like, seeing Smallwood be smacked around by Hector is pretty much like the peak of what I would hope for in terms of Smallwood getting a comeuppance of some kind. So, all right. So next scene is Charlotte letting Bernard into the secret lair.
Yeah, the secret lair. Because we've seen some secret lairs in the first season. But this is like a whole other level to secret.
Yeah. And he has to touch the handle.
To check for DNA.
Which is interesting because it doesn't sense what he is. And I'm just really curious how that works. How he's fooling all of this
the technology,
right? Yeah.
The best I could figure, because I struggled with this too, was that she says it's checking for DNA. Right? So Ford had Bernard working as though he were human for all that time. So he would have been put into the system already and be coded as, you know, Bernard, the behavioral tech guy. So it makes sense that he would pass whatever security that's in that system, because it would all be based on sort of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't say it tests for like any particular type of clearance or anything, just DNA. So I guess it would just want to make sure that you are a person,
right,
that is, you know, part of that's in our system, for lack of a better word. But he seems really nervous.
Yeah.
About touching this thing.
Yeah, I mean, since this is a totally secret thing, there's no telling what kind of a more advanced tech they might have, you know?
Right. So the only thing advanced that I would think it would be like not just checking your DNA to see if you're an employee, but are you authorized to be in this room?
Mm-hmm.
But she doesn't seem concerned at all. So she seems to know that's not what it's doing.
Right.
And then she says later about how he doesn't have to worry about the drone because his DNA checked out. It knows what he is.
Listen, you don't get to just mention the drone in this offhand manner and then continue on with your sentence.
How creepy was that?
That fucking thing is going to haunt my dreams. I hate it. I hate everything about it. I hate how it's introduced into the scene, creeping up behind him in this fashion. I hate that it keeps turning up.
Oh.
I hate that it's like a bunch of rubber bands.
When I first saw it, I was like, holy shit, what the fuck is that?
Oh my god, I hate it.
Oh man,
I hate it. You couldn't give your drones a face or skin.
No, there's no time for that.
Ugh. They're awful. They're awful.
So that they're awful things doing awful things.
Yes.
Because this is when we find out what is really going on at Delos and what has been going on.
I don't even, like, the implications of this are so enormous. All right, first, I want to talk about Charlotte and her messages that she's sending, and then we'll talk about what's really happening.
Okay.
So she's in contact with somebody on the computer and is, you know, being like, so are you going to come get us? Or...
Yeah, because shit's crazy down here.
Yeah. And they're like, well, you know, we're waiting on that shit you promised. And she's like, yeah, you got it. It was sent. And they're like, we're waiting on that shit you promised, sweetie. I don't have it in my hand. So you figure your shit out and we will be sitting here waiting for you.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's basically word for word what happened.
Right? I thought it was Maeve. I thought Maeve had been programmed by Ford to like leave the whole facility. And that it really was them that programmed her to leave. And that they had been waiting for her to get on the train and then she didn't. But then she says it was Abernathy. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, okay. I mean, he went offline really early in the show. It was like episode 1 that he gets taken out, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, we remember towards the end of the first season, she has the thing with Smallwood. And we know that she selected Peter Abernathy to put the information in. We got that in season 1.
Right. I forgot about that.
Right. So.
Yeah,
but
I just like totally forgot all of this.
Yeah, I can't remember. I don't think we got to see what happened. I think the last thing we saw was that she was telling Smallwood that he was in charge of getting Abernathy like out.
Right. That was like his one job.
Right. That was his one job.
That's why he was back in the facility. That's right. Because I was saying like that he was with his like little creation. Mm-hmm. But he went back in there to get Abernathy and then he realized shit was going down because nobody was in cold storage.
Right.
So I don't know how he wound up with that dude in particular. But
well, you know, jerking off. Oh, that sounds terrible. I don't mean it literally. Listen, but like he gets down there, everything is like not right. He just goes back to his office, maybe. Okay, so that's what happened with that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So they never got Abernathy, and based on the fact that we saw a flash of him in a fucking polo shirt, I assume he's still in the park somewhere and that we are going to see him again. And he doesn't look great in that little moment.
He doesn't look great.
So I think either there's others. I feel like whatever they did with the information trying to store it in him fucked him up. And I don't know if they can take it back or not. But I feel bad for him because... And I'm looking forward to seeing him again because that actor was ridiculous.
He was phenomenal, right?
Yeah. So I'm excited about that, to be honest. So yeah, they're not going to do an extraction until she gets Abernathy to them, which we see that an extraction has begun. Mm-hmm. So something got rectified somewhere.
Right.
All right, now let's talk about what's really happening, because we see these fucking drone hosts who are extracting DNA from the hosts.
Yep.
And also they're taking their little brain modules out, which this season's the first time that we have ever seen this done. Like, this is not routine.
Right.
And when Bernard sees them doing this, he's like, what in the motherfuck? Like, this is not anything that the rest of the facility has been okayed on or approved for or anything.
Yeah. And Charlotte is like, you know what this isn't? This isn't me telling you what the fuck's going on here.
Yep. Which I kind of respect that she's not doing the oh, why don't I just tell you my whole evil plan, even though it's not necessarily an evil plan, but I think it's an evil plan. Because what he says is, are you collecting all of the DNA and experiences of hosts in the park? And what, the implications of what could be done with this information are so enormous that I have no idea what the story could be.
Right.
Because there's 1,000 directions you can go in for that, Mm-hmm. But yeah, this is 23andMe on steroids here.
Yeah.
You know?
This is why I haven't done my DNA sample, y'all.
Yeah, they got me. But, at least I know that I'm 6% Korean. So I guess that was
How
worth
random was that?
I know.
I love too that you'll probably never get answers.
Nope. Nobody knows what happened there. Not a bit. I guess there's some theory that if that's showing up in your thing and you really strongly suspect that you've got some Native American heritage, that could be a migration thing.
Oh,
from
that's interesting.
Really early establishment of humanity in America.
6% seems high for something that far back,
right? Yeah, I don't think it might be wrong. Those things are supposed to be notoriously inaccurate. So,
I didn't know that either.
Well, it depends.
That's
on
a whole
who
other
you talk
conversation,
to.
I guess.
Yeah. But yeah, so I really don't know what they could be doing here, because I feel like a company like this is going to start making hosts that look like the people whose DNA they're collecting. That's the natural step in my head.
It would be, I imagine, very profitable.
Yeah, you could just get a double of yourself made from when you were at the peak of fitness and beauty and just have your brain uploaded into that. Sign me up. Fucking definitely. Are you kidding? You could just heal a body with a fucking torch. If they get injured in any way,
it definitely seems to be a lot of upside.
I could see being more willing to be a host than a human being at this point with their tech. The downsides would seem minimal. Seem being the operative word, because then people can program you to do whatever the fuck, which is just not great. Not a good place to be. But yes, that's the end of that scene, and then we see
this is where we find out too that the company is willing to let everything burn, you know, if they don't get this one thing. And she calls it an insurance policy.
Yeah.
Which is a whole other set of questions.
Brutal.
Because that implies, you know, that you need to have something in case stuff goes bad. So clearly stuff is going bad. So could they just want all the tech from the park? Is that even possible to transmit in one host?
That's or is like, yeah, that seems really ambitious, you know, for one dude.
Or is it like specific information? You know, I don't know. Indeed.
Well, let's go to the man in black, who's eating some beef jerky and chatting with young Ford.
What'd you think when this little kid popped up?
This fucking kid is such a creep. He's very well cast because, like, on the surface, he's just like a kid, you know, whatever. But they picked somebody who's just got this look to him.
That outfit's not helping either.
That outfit's just bananas. Like, that outfit looks like... like, he just got turned into a real boy after being a cricket that played the fiddle. Like,
it does. Oh, my God. Oh, my God, it does.
But yeah, and he's like obviously grown since last season too, so his legs are ganglier than they were. I'm just like, oh kid, I'm sorry. Like you're entering the worst time. When nothing fits right on your body.
And you get to be on TV for it.
Right. Oh, bless him. But and he's got this voice. No, thank you. Why did Ford do this?
Yeah, when it starts, like, talking kind of with both voices.
Yes.
Yeah, it's weird and unsettling.
I'm just, like, picturing Ford programming this and be like, oh, you know what'll really fuck him up? I'm gonna have both our voices. Initiate Creepster Protocol. That's what he named it. And yeah, this kid basically is here to be like, hey, so you wanted a special game just for you. This is it. Also, you need to find the door because it's a reverse game. You had to get to the maze. Now you need to get out.
Right. And have fun with all this. This is what you wanted. So, ta-da!
I'm going for a hike in the park. And he's just like, well... Thanks for the info, kid. Pop. And just shoot, which I cracked up, to be honest.
Did you really?
Yeah. It was just such a... It was like the only thing he could do because he's got no power in this scene.
Right.
And this fucking child just told him what's what.
Yeah. And he has been... You feel like he's been wanting to shoot Ford in the face for a while now. So he feels like, well, I've gotten all the information that you have to offer me.
Yep.
And you can just fuck right off now.
Yep.
I think that shooting a little boy in the face might have been a step too far.
Was it? Listen, have we not all met little boys that we would like to shoot in the face? Let's be honest. We're all among friends here. I'm sure there are parents who have wanted to shoot their own little boys in the face. Time upon time upon time. But there was something like him just trying to regain a bit of fucking dignity here, you know? And I think that's the last we see of him also this episode. So, okay. So there is another, because I thought that was the last moment that we see of Hector and Maeve, but there's the repairs that she does, which I had forgotten. Fixing all of the bullet holes that are in him, which looks so painful.
How could you have forgotten the scene where we get full frontal Smallwood? Because you wanted desperately to forget it?
I did want to. Like, not body shaming the guy, because Lord knows nobody wants to see me naked. But it is just also an extremely awkward thing. I did enjoy it because you got to see all of them naked all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Always, forever. And yet you're over here like, what? Naked? Here?
My favorite part of that scene, other than the obvious power shift, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which we've already seen throughout this episode. It was just one more moment of that. But my favorite is that once he finally does, she makes no comment. She barely acknowledges it. And she turns immediately, and her and Hector start going through the bin of clothes and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yep. She's just like, well, I just wanted you to do it.
I just wanted you to know that I could make you do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it could have been a moment of like, they could have played that a little bit differently, like her being like, you know, ha, now the tables have turned, you know?
Right.
But it's just like, it's so meaningless, you know, to them, to her. She's just like, yeah, but this is more interesting over here in this bin. Look at this hat.
Look at this hat. Also, I do enjoy like how after he gets naked, there's a long moment of him just standing there like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I did it. And I'm not going to rush to put my clothes on because you said so.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole thing is just so him trying to preserve his dignity in some way. But it's too late. Sorry.
Yeah.
That
Yeah, he lost that like several scenes ago.
Yep. Yeah, so that's the last time we see them. But I do think him wearing those pants with no underwear is going to be a problem for him. So once she turned away,
I didn't even think of that.
think
You're right. He doesn't
that
put his
underwear back on.
He does it. You are so right.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I love too.
Don't look soft. It's going to be
what?
chafage. You need a protective layer.
Or at least some talc powder or
right?
something.
This is actually, I was just talking to Owen about how, like, I think about going back in time, and the first thing that I think about, more than, like, plumbing or the internet, is, like, how rough fabrics were. Everything would rub you raw. Even being in bed, like, the sheets are awful. You'd wake up sore.
I went to what do you call it? A house that was on the Underground Railroad in Ohio. And it was one of the ones where they're like, it's kept in the style of the time with all the actual like fabrics and furniture and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it had 2 bedrooms in it. Not only were the beds themselves incredibly uncomfortable looking because they didn't have really what we would consider mattresses.
Right.
It was just like this weird woven fabric and then like blankets on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
The blankets and the, again, air quote, sheets, that shit was so rough to touch.
I'm saying.
It was just like, who slept here? This doesn't look good.
Yep.
This isn't restful. You don't wake up from this refreshed. Yeah.
This is the kind of, because I was thinking about it because I remember a time where super, super soft stuff was sold for premium prices.
Mm-hmm.
And now I went into Walmart the other day and there was a stack of $4 t-shirts. And I just ran my hand over them as I was walking by and I was like, God damn, like they were like butter.
Mm-hmm.
And just how far we've come with that kind of thing. But also, you know, you pay the price in terms of getting it that soft, puts it through a process that makes it fall apart much more quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I think like, you know, I like being comfortable. I like my comforts. That's a huge feature of my personality. Hence me having an entire suitcase filled with only food when you and I met up in Dallas. Like I was ready. So yeah, this sort of thing, like him putting those pants on with no undies, dude.
He's gonna regret that.
He will.
Also, he's like semi-erect in this scene.
I don't think so.
Oh no, he definitely is.
Do you think?
I think so. It's not a full on, but it's like what the kids would call like a chubby.
I don't think so. I think he's just a shower, not a grower.
You think so? Because
Mm-hmm.
there's a moment when he still has his underwear on before he takes it off, where he's got like a tent action happening.
I think it's the shower that's making that happen.
All right. Okay.
Also, he's uncircumcised. So that might add a little bit extra body to it.
Maybe that's what it is. Little heft.
Yep.
So, also, Maeve has that line where she's like, excuse me, guys. I don't know why I have like a hay fever situation going on the last couple of days. I remember I was sneezing so much Wednesday night when we recorded.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
But she says that it's about time he played a bit of the game when she throws the clothes at him. I'm like, yeah, all right. He's getting in on the action. And then we go to Dolores and Teddy, and where she states the obvious that Teddy is not 100% on board here.
Yes. Yeah, and it ends, like, you know, she does a lot of talking, but it's all saying things that we kind of know already.
Right.
And it ends with her being like, all right, I have something to show you. You need to know. And I just really want to know what that is that she's showing him.
What
Because it could be any number of things to prove this. Like, especially, I'm not exactly sure when in time this is happening. So, if this is like, you know, 2 days later, 3 days later.
From when we saw them shooting on the prairie?
Or just from when everything went to shit at the party.
Oh, okay.
Like, it could be... it depends on how functional certain aspects of things are that she could bring him to look at, you know?
Right.
And there's an interesting question that she poses where she says, you know, we've never been given a choice in what we do before, and what makes you think we are now. So, she's saying that she's not even sure this isn't part of the story.
I took that a little bit different. I don't think I took it quite as literally as that it's like necessarily like being programmed, but more like they didn't give us a choice. Like, this is what we have to do.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Because then she goes on to talk about how it's not going to be enough to win this war that she thinks they're fighting right now, but that we have to take their world too. Like, they can't be trusted. They have to be stopped.
And also, like, and I 100% am with her on this. Like, you can't just take over the world that you're in and be safely, like, nestled into this part of the world that they can forget about. Like, right? Yeah. And they wouldn't leave them alone anyway. Like, what do you take this over and then they just, oh, I guess we'll just let you have that island. Like, no. So, yeah, they're in, like, the middle of the making out when, what is her, we said, Angela rolls up?
Angela, yeah.
Angela wearing her weird-ass wreath. What is that? It looks like a scarf soaked in blood that she tied around her head.
Maybe it is.
It very well, maybe she's trying to be a red cap.
Oh my God.
Because there's something about it that, like, looks bloody, distinctly bloody, but then it almost looks like branches. I don't know what's happening there. Is it a crown of thorns? Is she being Christ-like?
Maybe that's what's going on here.
That seems right.
She rides up, and did she say something to them?
Yeah, she says we found it.
All right. So, thoughts? Prayers?
I really want it to be... Maybe it's like the entrance in the confessional booth, but she knows where that is. There's no, we found it. She knows where, she doesn't need to send somebody to figure that out. Yeah, I don't know. All right. Let's go to Charlotte and Bernard. She is... Are you still there?
I'm here.
Okay. You're so quiet all of a sudden. She needs to find this fucking host in order to get them out. And he talks about the mesh network. Which, on the one hand, makes perfect sense in terms of what he says, like to keep stories from overlapping with each other.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, feels awfully convenient all of a sudden.
Right.
But I'm not even that mad about it.
Yeah, because this is new, right? There's no mention of this in the first season.
Yeah, no, nothing.
I mean, we know that there was that scene with him and Teresa where he talks about how the hosts talk to each other, even when they're not guests around, to keep, them kind of like on their toes and practice conversation and stuff. But that's a very different thing than what he's talking about right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So he's gonna get into it via like a link in this guy's forearm, which I think is the same link that they use for the satellite uplink on the woodsman guy.
This weird like port thing that seems to be in all of them. I love to. I mean, I don't love it. I actually hate it. But how he keeps bumping into the drum.
Right.
And each time he's like sketched out and kind of like flinches.
Stares at it as it walks by like this shouldn't be allowed.
This is all unnatural.
And he has to cut into this host to like and his hands are shaking like a leaf. It's really, really bad. The fact that he's even able to do this is pretty surprising. Mm-hmm. And I thought he did a really good job acting this scene because it's like hard to get across how out of your control motor function stuff is. It can look really silly and fake, and he gets across that out of control, painful sort of, you know.
His whole performance in this episode is really amazing, and it's so different than the Bernard we got to know last season, right? Mm-hmm. This is what does Stubbs say to him at the very beginning? Like, you must be out of sorts. And it's just really he just is, Yep. He just doesn't seem to have any idea what's going on. And he's having this physical reaction. And just Jeffrey Wright is just really fucking amazing. And the first thing he does is like a diagnostic on himself.
Yeah, which is crazy. Like, that he can do that. I'm not sure how much I buy that he would have like the clearance to get in there as himself. Do you know what I mean?
Well, he was reinstated.
Yeah, but nobody is supposed to know, so this wouldn't be on just like regular.
Oh, I see what you mean.
You know what I mean?
He wouldn't just show up,
Yeah. So I don't know how he's doing this, but it's fine. And he has decided, I think correctly, that this is due to losing that fluid. So he uses a giant syringe to extract a bunch of it from this host and inserts it into his own head.
And trying to be like, has to be like super low key about it.
Oh my God.
She's in the other room changing clothes, and she's, and he's fucking, he's in a bad way.
Oh
he's
my
slumping
God.
all over the place and trying to keep it quiet. And, I think she calls out to him at one point, and he's like, yeah, everything's fine.
Yep. Yeah. Then when she comes around the corner, he's just like almost curled up in a ball and sweating.
Yeah.
And she's like, is everything okay? And there's this long pause where you're like, is he going to say at least that, like, this has all fucked me up pretty bad? And that's a believable thing, even though it may seem kind of, like, cowardly. I feel like it's understandable. But rather than do that, he just sits there staring at her until finally there's, like, a blink on the other thing, and it gets distracted. And she seems unsatisfied by the fact that he did not answer her. Her whole
reaction to him throughout this little ordeal of them getting to the space is just constantly like, Bernard, are you okay? Mm-hmm. Keep it together. Don't lose your shit here.
Yep.
What is your problem? What's going on with you? And it feels like, I don't want to say that she's suspicious, but just that she is just like, what the fuck is wrong, dude? Mm-hmm. Like, you are like you're falling to pieces here.
Yeah.
Like almost kind of like fucking get a pair of stones or something. Like, get your shit together, you know?
Yeah.
Like, this face she makes at him, she just kind of rolls her eyes and just like, this motherfucker is useless.
So we see him locating Peter Abernathy. Like, we see him on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything kind of flashes out and we go fast forward. And you can see, like, the bodies are, like, moldering. There are vultures, flies, all kinds of stuff.
So now we're back to, like, him on... excuse me again, guys. Sorry. Like, the him on the beach sort of moment, you know? He's back with that crew. And there's, like, buzzards and shit.
Yeah. Which
is weird because I think all the animals are, like, you know, host animals.
Yeah, I guess they're...
But the buzzards are still there.
Yeah, I don't
I
know.
guess they're just programmed to do what buzzards do.
I mean,
why would they even have buzzards? Well, whatever. I guess
because it's a foreboding. It adds atmosphere.
I guess. I mean, because you got to figure you don't really need to scavenger animals in this world where when the animals get fucked up, you just take them down to the lab and fix them up.
Yeah, I mean. It is like having a vulture hanging out by the gallows really gives an impression.
It does,
right?
Ambiance.
The logistics.
Oh, so this is when they roll up on Four's body, and I didn't care for this.
Yeah, nobody
I don't
needs
like
that.
Stuff like this, guys. And I got a thing about maggots too. I mean, I'm sure most people do. I cannot deal.
Yeah, I had a friend who had. She had a bad acid trip, and she saw her grandfather, who had just died, come out of her bedroom closet covered in maggots.
Yeah, see?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I have a weird memory that I'm not even sure actually happened, but, yeah, I can't take it. And I'm terrified in real life of them. Like, ever being in my field of vision. You know, like, I'm constantly worried that I'm going to see something that's, like, crawling with maggots.
Constantly worried?
Yeah, like, I'm going to just fucking, you know.
How often do you run across this kind of shit?
You know, I mean, like, dead birds, roadkill, you know, this shit can happen at any time when you least suspect it.
All right, moving on. So they get in their little futuristic dune buggies and chug along the edge of the lake and come across a tiger.
Mm-hmm. That shit is not supposed to be there.
Nope. It is from Park 6.
Yeah, so now we get an idea of how many parks they've got.
Listen, how many islands do they own?
I mean,
this is excessive.
You get one island and then you gotta have another one. It just works that way.
Islands are like potato chips.
I mean, you started the podcast talking about the other guy in Jurassic Park, and even they tried to get a second island. That's
true. Actually, for the original Jurassic Park, they already had 2 islands. So that was, I guess, going to be 3 and 4. So they use their tech after they find this tiger, and everybody's like, this doesn't make sense.
And they start, he says that there's, like, communications are starting to go back up or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they find this big cluster that's in this valley just beyond the cliff.
Mm-hmm.
But they get there, and it's not a fucking valley anymore.
Nope.
That shit
it's
a sea.
Ford was terraforming, guys.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't seem to appreciate what that meant.
Yeah. But they say that Ford couldn't have done it. And,
I mean, I guess.
Oh, you think maybe he could have? Maybe they're underestimating him.
I don't trust anything these idiots say.
I
don't know what the fuck is going on. And yeah, like we only see, you know, the water. We don't see them, like, they all seem to be assuming the water is just water, which I'm not 100% on that.
You know what's funny? I just thought of this too. In the finale of the first season, Ford has Dolores and Teddy have that whole, big thing, right? That moment, like in the moonlight.
Mm-hmm.
And he had it happen in front of a sea, like they were
Mm-hmm.
on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
But it turned out just to be like special effects, like a screen behind them. There wasn't really any water.
There was just a light for the moon. But there was water. Like, weren't all the benches and everything set up facing the beach?
Was that right? Is that
I'm pretty sure, yeah. I think that there was a boat out there that was like the spotlight on the two of them.
Oh, that's what it was. It was the ship putting the moonlight.
Yeah.
You're right. Because everybody was in the chairs, and then they all walked back up into town.
Right.
Well, never mind. That's probably why I hadn't thought of that before. That is wrong.
So then we get, the close-ups on everybody in the water, and we have what's-his-face asking Bernard, can you tell me what happened? And looking at him in this way, like, he's really started to grow suspicious of this dude. The fact that he can't remember anything and isn't answering or acting the way you would expect somebody who just went through this all to react. He just doesn't know what to make of this guy. And I don't even think that he's like, oh, maybe you're a host. It seems more like, what is fucking going on with you, dude? Something's wrong,
That seems the same. He just seems really confused by what Bernard says, which is that I killed them all. But he seems really confused even before that. Kind of like Charlotte Hale. Mm-hmm. But Hale's reaction seems to be based on what she knew of Bernard before. And this guy just seems like surprised because it's not what he would have expected someone in Bernard's position to be behaving as.
Right. And
then like I think what is supposed to be the biggest moment of the scene is who we see in the water.
I like how you say supposed to be. Because, this is Teddy, right? Because, honestly, it didn't look like him to me. It took me the second viewing to even realize what they were pointing out here.
Oh.
I don't know what it is about the water, but it, makes him look 15 years younger than he is. He looked a little Zac Efron-y to me.
He is ridiculously old, too. Way older than he actually is.
How dare you?
He's I don't remember his exact age, but I think he's older than me. I think he's 46.
How dare he?
That actor. He looks really good, right?
Ugh, I hate him. I hate you both. You look like my age and you're 10 years older than me. It's not fair.
Yeah, but I'm black.
I know.
He's not. What is his excuse?
He's rich. It's almost as good. Just pay everybody to fix you. Yeah. Well, so Teddy's dead in the water, supposedly. Whatever.
Not buying it?
It's not even that I'm not buying it. I just don't care about Teddy.
Oh, snap.
He's just sort of held everything back. It feels like a lot of the time. And the one time that I was interested was when he was with the Man in Black and went rogue. And then as soon as he has the chance to really go rogue, he's like, I don't know about this.
Right.
So
that's really interesting because you're right. He seems really wishy-washy. Maybe that's something that happens whenever he's just with Dolores. Because when he wasn't with her, especially when they were doing that whole, we were thinking he was Wyatt, and they were really selling it to us.
Indeed.
So, what would you like to see? How would you like to see the story progress as we go into the next episode?
That's such a hard question.
Yeah, I figured instead of doing what do you think's going to happen? What would you like to see happen?
Bless
you.
I really want to... I'm trying to think which part of the story I care the most about right now. I think I easily care the most about like what happened with Bernard in the meantime. So I would like to go back to the beginning a little bit more.
Okay.
See what happened after he met the creepy drone hosts and was talking to Charlotte, like what went on from there. Because, you know, he's still got the shakes, so whatever he did didn't completely fix him. And obviously he got involved in something. And I want to see exactly how Dolores tries to frame what she's doing to Teddy, because him being here, like the implication that they're making here is that he wasn't on board and he had to go. And I'm not sure that's what's happening. It might be, but it's the kind of thing that I want to see how the show writes her explanation and defense. And that's always something that's really key to me. I like to argue, and I feel like things hinge on the wording and the way you frame your position. And I'm really curious what she's decided is the thing that will convince him, because she seems very confident with whatever it is that they were looking for.
Right.
And yeah, with Maeve, it's like, I'm torn between, I want to see more of Maeve and Hector. I don't want to see any more of Smallwood. I definitely think that 3 of them will be fun to watch because the dynamic will be so weird and off.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not exactly sure what the end game is. She finds her kid. Yay. Now what? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, like, does she think she's just going to take her kid and they're going to do what? Go off into the real world like her plan had been at the end of last season?
Yeah, like she would have to get her child's spine changed, and there's, guess what? No more techs who know how to do that alive unless she finds them. Our little cat-named friends hidden off somewhere. So she couldn't really just run away. So then she's asking for... what, to like now be saddled with a child as she gets involved in the host revolution? That feels like a bad idea in a myriad of ways.
Right. And we don't, like, when she first bumps into Sizemore in the lab and he asks her, did she do it? Like, meaning like everything that's going on. And she's like, no, but I think that whoever did, we probably share the same sensibilities. Which is a really nice way of saying, I would have fucked the shit up too. Like, I don't care about y'all. But yeah, she doesn't seem particularly interested at all in what's going on here, you know?
Right.
We never get a moment of her being like that at all. She's like just focused on her particular mission.
I really just have no idea what they're doing there. I'm really curious. So, you know, my answer is what I would like to see is answers, which I know is not going to happen because it's the second episode. So, and I'm really here for like the bourgeoisie getting theirs. That's good.
I was going to say that's always going to be good. That's always going to be good quality television, folks.
Yep.
Let's
have a bunch of billionaires in evening wear sobbing and begging for their lives. Not feeling too bad about it. Okay for me. Thumbs up.
Holy shit, this is over. This is 2 hours.
I'm sorry. This is what happens. It's an hour and a half long show. We're actually not doing too bad.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
And that was the last scene, is us seeing Teddy. So we're done with that. And I want to mention, I'm going to put a little blurb in the beginning of this episode, but I'm going to bring it up again here real quick. That you guys should check out. We have a Patreon sponsor who is a high roller in order to get plugs on our shows. And they are called Day 11 Podcast. And they host a show It's a WestWorld podcast about WestWorld podcasts. You might not know this, but there are about 40 active WestWorld podcasts, and some of the smaller ones are really good. And this was written before we came back. If you can't wait for Unspoiled WestWorld to start hearing some conversations about the show, check out Day 11 WestWorld podcasts. Each episode on season 2 brings you new takes and recommendations for great WestWorld programs. Day 11 is still posting on WestWorld through the summer. And yeah, Better Call Saul just came back on the air on August 6th. So that's what they're talking about right now on Day 11. So you can search Day 11 WestWorld in your favorite podcast app or visit day11podcast.com. So yeah, I am really excited about, this bizarre idea that's super meta.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited that they are doing something that I feel like is inevitable. Also, do you know what I mean?
About podcasts.
Yeah, I bet nobody was like, oh, you know what they're going to do someday? A show about shows. Like, that's what we're doing. It's really on that same track. So yeah. I'm hoping that they do well because I think that's a fun idea and it's ballsy also. Like,
I agree.
I admire your grit, Day 11 podcast. And I want to let everybody know that, since the last time we started doing this, it's been several months. I started a new project called Spoil Me, which you can find on your favorite podcast app. Spoil Me is a commissioned podcast series, and you can go to unspoiledpodcast.com/shop and pay for me to read 50 pages of any book or watch one episode of any show or watch a movie. They're all different prices. There's different tiers for each one depending on how you want me to handle it. And you go in there and you choose what you want and you book a time slot, and I will do a solo podcast on whatever you chose live on Crowdcast. And then I will post the audio of that to the iTunes feed. And I started this as kind of like let's see what happens. I really need some extra money. I'm not quite making it. Let's find out. And it has been very well received, and I am getting booked up fast. So the first thing that came that has been like really consistently sponsored are Veronica Mars episodes. The first 7 have been sponsored. I've done 2 so far. Also, So You Want to Be a Wizard. The first 2 episodes I've already completed. There's a third one that has been commissioned just today. Also, The Parable of the Sower, which I don't remember her name. I'm trying to keep track of so many things right now. But that was a novel. That was the very first commission I got.
Oh, and the name of the person who commissioned it? Or
Octavia Butler, right? Is the author?
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, that was the first commission I got, and she just came back and commissioned the second episode and plans on doing the entire book. Sunshine, which is a really fun vampire novel, and it's like not, when I say vampire novel, it conjures like really stupid love triangle-y Twilight stuff. It's not like that at all, I promise. And I really think that you guys should check it out if you're looking for something wild and fun and kind of offbeat. That I have done 2 episodes of so far as well. And, the rest is on its way. She's planning on commissioning the entire book. And Fire and Hemlock, I'm going to be doing in a couple days. And I started Iron Druid, the first book called Hounded, as well as I just got a commission for 6 of Crows, which I have not yet started. So there is so much. So if you guys have been interested in any of the things I mentioned, you should check out the Facebook group and help organize, like, between other listeners who might be interested in doing another additional episode. And that way you can get an entire book covered between you all. And that will be at facebook.com/groups/spoilmepod. And, yeah, you can also commission something brand new, a new show. I know, somebody got in touch with me today and said that they might be commissioning, what is that show based on the book that you really liked? Broken Pieces, Shards of...
Sharp Objects.
Sharp Objects, that's the one. And yeah, they're considering starting commission on that.
They want you to do the show or read the book?
The show. because I've been hearing left and right how good the show is. So, yeah, so that's stuff that's on the table. So check out Spoil Me on iTunes or whatever podcast thing you use. I think I have to get that onto Stitcher. I'll work on that. And also, you can commission something at unspoiledpodcast.com/shop. I think that's it. Is there anything else?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Right. I'm excited to be back in this world. I can't wait for you to see what they have in store for you this season. It is quite the ride.
Yeah, and there's an interesting thing that actually Nick from Day 11 Podcast suggested in terms of how we are to record some later episodes.
Yes.
And you seem to agree with him. So
yeah, I think it's a really good idea. I wanted to ask you about, because I could remember where it came from.
Yeah,
so
it was from our sponsor, our patron. So yeah, thanks Nick for that suggestion. And I don't know what it means, but Rashawn appeared to be very interested in that method that you suggested. So, and those who are listening don't know what we're talking about, but it'll be wild. I promise. You won't notice a difference, actually, probably.
Not for me, yeah, because,
All right, everybody. Thank you all so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, leave a review on iTunes, and we will see you next week with a new episode. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.